The following is a special presentation of XCW.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of XCW Inception, where we take a look back at the inception of XCW. And today we are finally getting over the hill. You know, we're falling off the zip lines onto the turnbuckle posts, and we've made it over the edge.
Too soon.
Too soon? Okay. Fifth show televised for XCW, Over the Edge, and it felt like a big show. I mean, we had a 7 match card. No, 7 match card. There we go.
Yeah.
I don't maths very well. We had a 7 match card. I'm pretty sure we got a peep show in here too on there.
Yep.
And it was also the very first show on the porch. Which was the closest up to that point that those guys gotten to a wrestling ring. I mean, you had wood and you had pads. All you were missing was a canvas. Canvas and ropes. I enjoyed the intro with the pyro. It was the first XCW show that had pyro. Again, that's part of what made it feel like a big show for me.
Yeah, pyro always makes everything feel good.
But with that 7 match card, we got to see Psycho Circus Clown taking on
Captain
Crook. I don't acknowledge other captains. Then immediately after that, we had Biohazard versus Captain Crook, because the first match was a gut check match. Psycor taking on E. Lucifer in a rematch from the last show. This time, no disqualification. Hazard versus Eternal Darkness. Cynical versus Blade in a #1 contenders match for the Intercontinental Championship, now known as the International Championship. Fletch going one-on-one with Vapor in a match for the Intercontinental Championship, I believe. But no, it wasn't an Intercontinental Championship match. It was just a match, non-title.
Non-title.
And then we had the main event, finally getting that payoff of DTC versus Kurt Acid. And before we cut to commercial break, I want to ask you, Festus, what do you think is going to be the match of the night here?
Once again, just look at the card, I would have said Cynical and Blood.
Cynical and Blood. Alrighty, well, looking at the card for me, I'm going to go with Fletch and Vapor. I mean, Fletch has been consistently putting out some banger matches recently. Obviously, I personally think the star of the night is going to be Hazard. I feel like this show, he's one-on-one in a match. It's his first opportunity to show what he can do without a tag team partner, one-on-one. But we'll obviously figure out if that's the case towards the end of the show after this commercial break, where we come back and we go through these matches, evaluate them, tear them down, rip them apart, give them a star rating, and then we'll have questions for the boss.
Let's go.
Can't stop me, can't stop me. 궤도를 다 뒤집어. Get ready, dreaming area. Get ready, dreaming area. Can't stop me, 나를 이끈 넘어.
beautiful commercial as always. We're going to start off with the first matchup. Psycho Circus Clown making his on-screen return.
Yeah, returning clown to go up against Captain Crook. Gentlemen, we only see this show.
Yeah.
As far as I've ever seen or even heard.
And the commentators called this a gut check match. Anybody that doesn't know what that is, this is kind of, if it's a gut check match, it's can you handle it? Can you stay around?
Yeah.
Do you deserve the contract? Something TNA really made popular back in the day with the gut check challenge. So there's nothing to talk about because it wasn't a match. Psycho Circus Clown just beat him. That's all it was.
Squash. That's all I have on my notes. Squash.
That's all he has on his notes. The one word. Obviously,
I mean, shoot, if you sneezed, you missed the match.
Obviously, the peep show that was after the match was way more entertaining.
Yes.
I very graciously gave it a half star just because I feel like rating anything as 0 stars is a dick move.
See, I guess I'm going to be that dick because 0 stars.
Peep show saw Psychor being the guest. Psychor's first on-screen promo. Only thing I pulled from this peep show was Psychor hates midgets. That was his word. He hates little people.
Yeah, he did express that hatred. But then right at the end of this, Captain Crook comes out.
Bro's like, I want
must-
another chance.
And part of the ring psychology thing again. He shows, granted, short match, so he shouldn't be blown up. But he also did, get beat. So he should show a little of that. No, he comes out fresh as a daisy.
He comes out kind of pissed too.
Yeah,
he looked like he was
he's not even
shitty.
I was like, okay, he's angry because he got squashed.
He's
And
angry!
Like, he flew off the rate. But
Maybe it's because of the name they gave him.
Maybe.
We'll find out later when we talk to the boss man in the hot seat. But it was an impromptu matchup for the European title. Biohazard defending against Captain Crook. I always want to say Captain Hook. But the only question I had was, it was very shooty. Felt extremely shooty.
Yeah. I said, I was like, I personally thought this should have been a slightly longer squash.
It was.
But
Did Crook get a move in?
It just lasted a little longer.
I was gonna say, are we following the match?
lasted a lot. It was like, man, I almost thought it should be again. Just
Are we following the Matt Hardy jobber squash rules? Jobber gets one move in before it's over. Crook loses quickly again. It felt very shooty. Still very curious as to when Biohazard won the European title. Again, commentary didn't express that. I'll ask the boss about that later. I gave this another very generous half-star rating. Got to give Captain Crook one solid thing in his life.
Once again,
You
0 stars.
0 stars. You're bringing the show average down, man.
No, they brought the show average down. Okay, I'm just kind of judgmental, I guess. It just there was nothing. There
was nothing. There was nothing.
Not even entertaining. It's like at least for me.
Obviously, we followed that up with a no disqualification match. We had your two stinkers. Time to bring the card back up a little bit. It was E. Lucifer against Psychor in a rematch from May 21st. E. Lucifer went poof under the porch. Did his entrance and then he was gone. He go poof. Just like his wig.
Just like the hair. He's been losing the hair.
You know what didn't get lost is that stop sign. The Psychor Captain America threw that.
That stop sign. The
The stop sign was more over than Captain Crook.
Yeah.
not hard to
A
do.
lot of things are. But they just beat the holy hell out of each other.
The weapon shots were gnarly. There was obviously a camera cut in there, a very weird one. I'll ask Fletch about it later, whether it was a intentional camera cut or if the camera just died. We do know that the camera just started back on its own thanks to the man behind the camera, who apparently hated his life. And that brings me to my comment of the night. Fletcher, I'm a horrible fucking cameraman. That needs to be on a t-shirt. Explicitly given to Patrick. Or Jacob.
Hey,
I mean, Jacob straight up forgot to record a match. So.
I'm in a glass house. I won't touch a camera because my hands are so shaky. Even with all the newfangled cameras that supposedly take out the shake. Yeah,
newfangled. You mean things that have a gyroscope in them?
Yeah.
I know they weren't invented back then, but like, that was my comment of the night. I don't know if you have a different comment of the night.
Yeah, that made me laugh so hard. I don't know why.
Again, I wrote Lucifer goes bald. I have another note. The dive that they were doing, you could tell Lucifer, for some reason, despite DTC doing elbow drops off of fences and stuff, was pussing out on this dive. He had gotten on the top of the porch, then went down, and then down again. And then by the time he got off, Psycho's just looking at him like, bro.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah.
They should have reversed it. Ring psychology now would say that's a reversal waiting to happen. The DDT from hell, though. We're going to talk about that one getting spiked. Woo!
Oh, gosh. Like I said, the shots in this match, they were lighting each other up with everything.
Again, that was where Lucifer went bald. The cameraman even pointing out Lucifer getting a magical haircut. Then there was the nasty powerbomb that Lucifer tried to give Psychor and almost killed him. Shouldn't be picking up a man bigger than you. It just doesn't work out.
Yeah, that was something, you know. Yeah, but
Fletcher, I'm a
my
horrible fucking camera person.
I was hardcore match, kind of all over the place, but the spots with the weapon shots, that DDT, the power, yeah, definitely, psychology, yeah.
It wasn't there. It was a hardcore match.
But it's a hardcore match, so you're not really relying on that. And
I was gonna say, we always talk about how hardcore can cover the lack.
Yeah, you can cover. Yeah. Branded to these two, but
yeah. What did you give this match?
I gave it a 2-star.
I had it at a solid 2.5. For me, it was really entertaining. It's one of those very few matches so far in these shows that has some value of rewatch to it. And it's just to see these guys kill each other. We went back over after that to the Hazard versus Eternal Darkness match. And this is another masked character. So I personally assumed that it was going to be a squash. I figured it's Hazard's first single match on camera. Hazard's this big, bad monster. This is going to be Hazard coming out and murdering Eternal Darkness. And instead, the only thing that got murdered was Eternal Darkness's mask. Started off with an attack. Hazard looked like he gained 20 pounds over that little bit of a summer break that they had.
Maybe a couple of notes I had on this is, and I've been part of similar spots too, but there was a stop sign shot right to the referee. Ref gets when he recovers, it's not like he got hit from behind. The guy that did it. Once again, been in a similar situation, and it's one of those I give. Man, I kind of look dumb. I clearly saw who hit me. I probably should have DQ'd them.
Yeah, by the time you recover from getting hit, you're a little loopy, you're a little wonky, you spaced on a thing or two.
True that. Who hit me? So that could be it. Yeah, exactly. Who hit me? I don't know. Continue.
And this match had a very close second contender for comment of the night. Oh, fuck my mama. takes a chokeslam, 1-800-Delaware to fuck his mom. All I know is Hazard barely broke that referee's count to get back in the ring to stop the count out.
Yeah, in fact, I was
he didn't really break the count.
Thought it was like, okay, we're counting the stat. You know, it was like
he was on the stairs at 10.
He was on the stairs at 10. It was like, okay, you know.
I guess the stairs are part of the ring.
Yeah. It was like,
and that's another thing I've noticed throughout these this show on the porch and future shows on the porch is the porch is referred to as the ring, and only occasionally was it treated like a ring where countouts were applied and stuff like that. A lot of the matches randomly turned into Falls Count Anywhere matches. And I guess that falls into the no psychology stuff, and it's easier to do stuff in a bigger area with the ground than in the contained area of the ring. But I guess that's something we'll ask the boss man about later. What did you give this match?
I give it 1.5. The count out finish kind of took away for it from me. And the fact I was thinking squash as well.
Yeah, I gave it a 1 star because of that. I was like, this should be a squash. Mm-hmm. This should have been a squash. I feel like that was a missed opportunity on the booking side of things to have that be the point where we make it certain that Hazard is a monster. And maybe it's because he wasn't being billed as that monster back then because he was in a tag team and a faction. But that brings us to our next match, the number 1 contender for the Intercontinental Championship. We had Cynical taking on Blade. Obviously, Biohazard earlier in the match, squashing Captain Crook. Brings the different side of him with Blade. Mm-hmm. And, the early days of VK2 and New Power Generation feuding. We got another one-on-one right after, building those two factions and the fact that they're going to be at war, and for the foreseeable future. Indeed.
No DQ match, and
why is it no DQ?
He won. I remember you and we were watching it. You're like, why is this no DQ?
It had no build to be a no DQ.
And the one is Cynical diving off the garage, and just dives off ring. You don't see the bump. It's like I wrote, Cynical almost kills himself and the camera misses it.
I would have been more pissed that the camera missed it, not that I got hurt.
Yeah.
Like if I was Cynical and I got hurt doing that spot.
Oh yeah.
You can bet your bottom dollar that cameraman would have gotten that stop sign up his ass.
It's like, if I'm gonna hurt myself,
you better catch it.
You better get the footage.
Yep. That I wrote in here, and it's something I had alluded to just a few seconds ago. Did the ring mean nothing? Because you were getting Falls Count Anywhere. Even though it was no DQ, it shouldn't have been Falls Count Anywhere. It wasn't billed as Falls Count Anywhere. If you're going to do Falls Count Anywhere, bill it as a Falls Count Anywhere match. Cameraman missed the dive. I also had that in my notes. It was a pretty solid back and forth match.
Oh, yeah.
They both had their fair share of momentum. I was trying to read what I had wrote, but I scratched part of it out. But it was Cynical won with a lame-ass finish. Cynical could have had something a lot cooler as a finish back then. I'm pretty sure he won off of a suplex.
I don't have the finish on my notes, so...
And the lackluster finish is what, plus the cameraman missing the dive, is what took a half-star off for me, because I originally had it as a 2-star, but it's 1.5 for me.
See, I have it at 2.5, and it would have been 3. The camera stuff, a few other things.
Obviously, that goes again into the stuff that wouldn't fly today. Speaking of stuff that wouldn't fly today, an overarching theme of this show is something that still happens to this day. Fletch yelling at people to stay the fuck away from the equipment.
Yes. In this episode's things that never change.
Yeah. Things that never change.
Which, hey, especially now, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And shoot, I'm sure back then,
I mean, those boom
Yeah.
boxes weren't cheap.
no, not at all.
And that extension cord had to have been a 50-foot one, so that was probably pretty expensive in its own right. They stole it from the trailer next door. They wouldn't know. That brings us, speaking of Fletch, to the co-main event of this show. The non-title matchup pitting Vapor, the Intercontinental Champion, against the good guy Fletch. Match again felt really lost without commentary, and it's a running theme because while Kurt Acid, you could tell it was Kurt Acid behind the camera, he has a very distinct voice, was dropping an occasional, here's this. It was just that. It was a cool move.
Yeah, it wasn't a
It was a
running commentary. It was
a oh my god.
yeah. One of
Instead
those
of
skills.
Mamma Mia. Fletch delivers the Mamma Mia, on commentary. But everybody was attacking Fletch in this match.
Yeah, and it seemed, there's a lot of extracurricular activity going on in this thing.
And again,
Just a lot.
The cameraman was missing a lot of shit in this match too. And that's kind of what killed this match for me. It wasn't the fact that it felt like Fletch was shooting on Smitley, which he goes on to do quite a few years later in ring. I'm sure we'll get to that point at some point in time. He shot on Smitley.
I've heard the story.
Shitley, as some people call him. There wasn't many notes for me to have on this match other than like everyone attacking Fletch and the cameraman missing a lot. I had it rated at a 1 star. It should have been a great co-main event leading into what was
like you said,
a world title
you
match.
thought it might have been match of the night. You're just looking at the card. The extracurricular activity just took me out of it. Probably again the commentary, which I kind of once again trying to look at it not through a 2023 lens. Looking at it in that time, and it's like, okay, when I see a Fletch of that match, I'm almost through that. I'm like, okay, we're not going to get a helpful commentary.
Well, but even
hopefully there,
even then though, as a wrestling fan, any wrestling is hard to watch without commentary. Because while they're telling a story in ring with what they do and how they do it, the commentary is what sells the backstory to the story they're telling. And if you don't have that, you lose that edge.
Yep.
Unless you've watched the product and are a diehard fan and know exactly what's going on. And in this point, there wasn't a lot of storytelling going on, so you needed that commentary to really push forward what was happening and why it was happening.
And like you said, and the people. That's always a big thing when I'm watching a show that I've never watched before, and even with commentary, there's some commentators that will go you'll watch a match for 5 minutes and they will not mention either guy by name, and it's like, I've never watched your product before. Who are these people? Why should I care?
Blue pants and red pants.
Yes. But like I said, I look at it, I try to, okay, this was different era, different time, and
where was JJ back then? That's all I wonder. Maybe we'll have to have him on sometime and ask him.
But I had it as a 1.5. I did actually have, but not as high hopes as you did for it, but I did. I would, when I saw the card, I was like, okay, that's probably going to be, second.
Yeah. And it wasn't. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
And now we get to what, in my opinion, is the actual match of the night, going off of the evaluations and stuff. DTC versus Kurt Acid in a tables match for the XCW Championship. And we got to see Kurt Acid come out to a new theme song, too, in this match. No longer from, let me told you from Amityville, like, on repeat over and over and over again. That song sucked. His new song, not as bad.
Still in it.
Yeah. Still in it. But
yeah.
Eminem's not bad. That song just sucked. Those tables, man.
that table would not break.
None
for
of them.
love or money.
They tried the first.
Nothing.
They tried the first piece once and it wouldn't break, and then tried the second one. DTC was smart enough to grab the other one, hoping it would break. Bro, waterlog the table, score the bottom, something. Because that table.
And the one piece, I know we kind of looked at each other and we're like,
That's
when
good to
it
know.
first pull it out, it's like, I don't think that'll support anyone. They're going through that. That looks
Yeah, it was
pretty.
a weird. It was
beat.
thin, weird particle board.
They put it down. It's like, oh gosh, you basically broke each other.
Yeah.
You know?
And they did kill each other. I mean, Benji threw him with a choke slam onto that table. Didn't get anything. The table, I wrote, and I quote, "I am the table. These tables suck." DTC was trying to break the table at one point. He had laid it on Acid's back and was kicking it, and it still wasn't breaking. And but what I want to know is, would that have, as a referee?
I wouldn't have counted that as going through the table.
Okay.
You know?
Hear me out though. Mm-hmm. It was Big Show versus, was it Cody Rhodes?
I wouldn't have called that.
Big Show versus Cody Rhodes, and Big Show stepped on the table.
through the table, and they call it.
If
It's like,
DTC had kicked
I-
the table in half, wouldn't he have, by virtue, gone through the table?
yeah, but it's not by an offensive move.
It doesn't have
Which
to be.
I think
Cena went through the table against Sheamus, and it wasn't an offensive move. Cena
and
just fell off and went through the
that
table.
was a bad call as well. But
Which Sheamus has gone on record saying that was the intended finish. It was supposed to look like a screw up. I don't think any of these were intended to look like screw ups. What didn't look like a screw up was that first acid slam on DTC. That was brutal. That was nasty.
yeah, there were a couple of those table spots because, well, they were expecting it to break.
Yeah, and obviously I wrote the beginning of these notes before we got to the end of the match, and I was like, why the hell is there a ref bump? And then we found out later in the match it was
I actually called it. I was like,
Yeah.
they're going to do the thing where the guy goes through the table.
Well, the ref can't see
the
it.
ref
so it
can't
doesn't count.
see it. Match continues, and sure enough,
Why did DTC try to pin Kurt Acid in a tables match? They did the full roll up, roll through spot, and Daniel, what are you doing?
It's DTC? That'd be my answer.
Who plays
Pretty
this?
much
DTC?
whenever I try to figure things that DTC does out, I have to I come back to that all the time.
And
why does he do what he does? Because that's DTC.
DTC coming out as the new champion. Finally, I had it written. The boyhood dream came true. Finally capturing the World Heavyweight Championship. Obviously, we had said it in the earlier shows. We saw what DTC could do on the trampoline and on the ground. He was destined to be a star in some capacity. The thing for me that really held DTC back was his inability to work with people. And we'll find out in a little bit when we talk to Fletch about the decisions made on this show, whether or not that is what led to DTC's shorter title reign, or if there were plans for DTC to be a long-standing champion.
Yeah, if he was just meant to be a transitional, or was he meant to hold it for the long haul? Definitely a question for the boss when we get him here.
And I guess we're going to get him here right after this commercial break. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the boss in the hot seat. Man, this one's a touchy subject today.
I made notes on this one.
That's how you know it's a touchy subject.
He's unhappy with us.
He wasn't too
But
he wasn't
I
too fond
do-
of Festus's 0-star ratings.
You sneeze and you miss that first match. I know it's by design, but
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, you know
That
but-
brings me to my first question. Why the name Captain Crook?
Captain Crook was his name. Captain Crook came in as a one-off favor for Cynical. That's why we called it the Gut Check, so that we had a reason to put him in the show without ever having to use him again. I never met the guy prior to this match. I never seen this guy again after.
Oh, wow. That's surprising because
He couldn't see you at any point anyway.
We'll mention guys that had a short run. And you'll be like, oh, I saw them 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I
I
talked
just
to them on
talked
the
to them on the phone yesterday. You're like still in contact with so many people who
Like you've said before, it's a family that's hard to walk away from.
Or big things on the roster. You still
But
See
Captain
him and
Crook
keep in
was
touch.
he was a spot filler as a way to bring Psycho Circus Clown back to TV. Psycho Circus Clown was one of two of the first wrestlers to ever compete in XCW. The very first match in XCW in 2003, on that ill-fated day where everything began, it was Psycho Circus Clown and Eternal Darkness in the opening match, in a table match, where Nightmare would debut, interfere, and chokeslam them both through the table. So, which speaks to why the masked characters were such an important part of XCW during these early years, and not really used as the job guys. This is why they were important.
They weren't the blue
because
pills of the roster.
They were important to what the inception of XCW was. And when you have guys like Eternal Darkness, Nightmare, Psycho Circus Clown, and Lucifer were kind of like, they were babied through most of these years. They were very crucial, very important to what they did. And like I said in the last episode, I feel like Lucifer worked better than DTC. So
I have had a question since we've been coming up on this show, and I was like, did you ever speaking of names, did you ever have any qualms or second thoughts about naming the show Over the Edge, seeing the history of the name and the Owen Hart tragedy?
No, I didn't think about things like that.
Yeah.
Then. I called it Over the Edge because I wanted it to. I wanted things to feel over the edge. This is really the very first show that you see where the NPG VK2 thing really starts to come in. You really start to see things come through. You see Kurt Acid stuck in the middle. DTC becomes champion. You see myself and Vapor go one-on-one. You see Blade and Cynical go one-on-one. You see Blade at ringside during my match with Vapor and getting involved in that match to continue mine and Blade's story, as well as telling the story of, NPG members out there to screw with VK2. Not a lot of Chris Jones mentioned in this episode.
Yeah. I think didn't we only see him like once walk out with somebody?
He was not in this show at all, but it was by design to keep him stronger so that next show he could come out and announce himself as a member of New Power Generation. So we kept him off of this show purposely because there wasn't really a place for the Power title, and we really wanted to have him showcase the following show that he was the third member to go against VK2. So, because at this point it's just Vapor and Dylan Blade, who are members of the team. Another note I had was the porch legit looked like a ring. It had the middle and the top.
And the porch didn't really work. Like it was.
Yeah,
it was a good different touch.
I prefer it to the trampoline.
Oh yeah, give me the porch all day. I'll bump on a porch. I hate bumping on a trampoline. I'll bump on a porch. Obviously, Festus gave the beginning 2 matches 0 stars. I gave him half stars.
You were way too generous.
You kind of feel like we were burying the entire show. You said that before we started rolling.
You did.
It wasn't meant to be a burial. For me, there was a lot more, of course, looking from the modern era, not looking at it back then. Back then, you were working with what you had. For me, there was a lot more goofy, funny comedy stuff.
Like, obviously, another thing that you guys had mentioned was something about why is this no DQ? Why is this pinfall? Were there rules in the old ECW?
No,
Or
no.
was it just balls to the wall,
yeah,
beat the shit out of each other? And this was Extreme Championship Wrestling. And what have I told you guys? The hardcore wrestling masked the fact that there's not as much talent. And when you have guys that are on this roster that are just learning, just really getting their feet wet in wrestling, and you have a name like Extreme, that's what you're doing. You're masking the fact that there's not wrestling ability. So, that plays into why there's so many no DQs or why there's so many different, the only match that really got the real match feel is Hazard and Eternal Darkness.
Yeah, everything else left the ring.
And then you guys also mentioned something about Biohazard being the European champion. There's actually, if you guys go back to the very first episode of Inception, I talk about how in this era there are Wednesday and Friday shows. So Wednesday show had taken place prior to this. That scene, a triple threat between Biohazard, Corruption, and MILF Hunter, that would see Biohazard come out as European champion to set up for myself and Biohazard to be in the final European Championship match, as the power title was, of course,
taking that.
That's what we thought might happen, because you had mentioned, you had the stuff you didn't televised.
I wish that the non-televised Wednesday show was in existence, because there were so many interesting things. We had an NAW crossover. So Hazard's company NAW did a crossover with us on that particular show. We had Nate Thomas from NAW taking a light bulb to the face by Barry. I know you guys don't know who any of these guys are, but just they had some brutal spots in their match. A guy named Chaos, weirdly enough, Chaos Cody Russell come in, threw one of the most beautiful super kicks to Cyborg's face I've ever seen in my entire life. We actually had some of the New Era wrestling guys come out to that taping, or non-taping, I guess I should say.
Oh, wow.
And they interfered in a Power Championship Battle Royal. So a lot of things happened in that show. I wish that we wouldn't have done no tape Wednesday. So
well, I mean, and I note that on the notes for the next show, because obviously we watch the shows in a string to keep the flow of everything going before we sit down here and rip them to shreds. And I had noted that in the next show, it kind of felt more like a crossover style with a lot of mentionings. It's where you really feel that working relationship with an AW come into play. And obviously you've had working relationships throughout the tenureship of XCW. Who was the cameraman in Psychor and Lucifer?
Cynical.
Was he in fact that fucking horrible of a cameraman?
He wasn't great. Well, I'll say this: he was good camera, horrible commentator. Psychor was also really introduced. I think having Psychor on the Peep Show was really a way. You'd seen Psychor in the ring prior to this, but I feel like one of the things that stood out to me in this episode specifically that people should go back and watch is it. Even though it's more goofy and lighthearted and not really a character builder, you really finally get to know about Psychor. We alluded to him being a Gold Glove boxer and stuff like that in this Peep Show. Boxer? Yeah, no, that's the character.
Okay.
So
hence the stupid fucking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like this was really an introduction of Psychor, who obviously we would know would be a mainstay for a really long time.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Summer Mania this year.
I feel like that was one of the most integral parts, other than the VK2 and MPG kicking up into higher gear. getting the introduction of Psychor was a big focus in this show. And of course, it was the Psychor Lucifer payoff. It was kind of the ending of Psychor's first official rivalry in the company. I also wanted to note that anyone who wants to ask about Lucifer's name, I'm going to surprise you guys didn't ask. So obviously, we were working a lot with New Era Wrestling. A year later or so, a group of us would begin our training there, and I would eventually become a referee a year or so later for New Era. So we were working a lot with them in the early days. My uncle Keith, which is actually Onyx's dad, was a referee there, a long tenured referee. So we went and got all of our training and stuff there, and I became a referee and stuff through New Era. There was actually a wrestler in New Era at the time, and his name was Reficule. If you spell Reficule backwards, it's Lucifer. And I just thought that was a little tidbit that I would throw in. And then also my opinion on the Psychor Lucifer match is the match went too long.
I can understand that.
I
did have something here about one of the matches being long. It wasn't that one though.
Main event.
Yeah. Main event went a little bit longer than I felt like it should have. Why the count out in Hazard and Eternal Darkness? Why not the squash to make Hazard look like a monster?
Again, it was so important to have these mask characters, the specific mask characters that we had at the time. Mm-hmm. It was so important to keep them in a position where they could be transitional champions and be in a position where if you just go out and squash them, then you already know your outcomes. But if you keep them with a little bit of momentum, a little bit of heat, you would be able to use those guys as transitional champions to protect your other guys that are not in mask. Mm-hmm. It's easy to transition from you being the power champion, losing it to Eternal Darkness, who's going to only lose the championship to Festus 2 weeks later. Okay. It's a lot easier to do that than to have you drop that title to me to drop it to Festus in 2 weeks. And you had to do a lot more of that back then because of the wishy-washy ways.
Lack of consistency.
Yeah.
I guess that answers my question of when did Vapor win the Intercontinental Championship?
Vapor won the Intercontinental Championship in the very first episode of Sin in the Triple Threat with Blade and DTC. At Sin.
That's Sin.
My memory is shot, so I had it listed as when did you win the Intercontinental title. I forgot the Intercontinental title existed.
It was in the very first episode. Camera on the grill.
The tree. Were you in fact shooting on Smitley in that match?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it looked like it.
Another thing I wanted to mention is the suplex through the side of the trailer, and then the comment. My favorite comment of the show, other than 1-800-Delaware, fuck my mom, is Cynical getting suplexed through the side of the trailer, and then Psychor in the background screaming, "Kick his ass, Seabass."
Yeah.
Alrighty.
And then, my last note is main went too long.
Yeah, the main did in fact go too long.
Yeah, it was.
Speaking of the main event, I actually recall we didn't get a proper rating before we brought the boss into the hot seat for this main event.
Yeah, we did not.
And with it being the first televised tables match, I figured we'd do it a little bit differently and actually get your rating while we rate the match first off.
I think for the fact that it went too long, it definitely knocked some stars off of it. I think part of the way through the match, they started getting frustrated, and that also took away from the match. I think had the table broke, once they did the referee spot, they did the fake table, and then they did the next table spot. If it would have ended there, it would have been better. I think it would have been a 3.5, 4-star match easy. Yep. I think with the table issues and the growing frustration as the match went, really hurt. So it's probably 2 3/4 for me.
That's exactly what I had.
See,
right there. 2.75 stars.
In the sense of when it was and who was in it and stuff.
I know, but I understand. But even in the early days, when you have a finish planned,
and it doesn't go according to
and
plan.
then they have
Yeah.
to pivot in the match as they go.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing a ref spot
That's
that
right.
should be towards your end of the match. You know,
Yeah.
where you're doing the fake table. Ref makes it to his feet, sees that there's a broken table, but doesn't know who went through it, and then goes to your finish.
Yeah.
That couldn't happen because we had the almighty unbreakable table.
Yeah.
Right, and I agree with that. I had it originally listed as a 4-star match when I was watching through it and stuff, and then through evaluation and stuff. The table's not breaking and stuff, and it going a little bit longer than it should have knocked it down a 1/2 star for me, and I have it at my first 3.5 star throughout all of these shows. So, I mean, it was overall the match of the night.
Yeah.
And of course, as we know, that this would be DTC's only XCW championship in his entire career. So, I mean, this was a pretty big moment for him. He's a star that was never meant to really be the top guy. So for him to, I mean, a year and a half into XCW, to finally get into the position of being the XCW champion was not only a big deal for him, but it was a big deal for what was to come of VK2, where you have, essentially three world champions. Cynical, not yet a champion, but essentially 3 world champions in the group. So it makes it a power group. So you have, you have the dominant group of VK2 with myself, Cynical, and DTC, all champions. Then you have Blade, Chris Jones, Vapor, all world champions. You have Kurt Acid in the middle trying to fight off both. And then you have the underbelly. You have this newer faction coming in that have not yet got close to that main event scene of Hazard, Stingray, and Little Pimp that's bubbling on the surface, just waiting for one of these teams to fuck up. And so if you look at it that way, there's a long-term storytelling there of having even that extra trio in the end of where things going to land and what is going to make Kurt Acid tick in this situation. He's stuck in the middle of gang warfare. What is it going to take for Kurt Acid to... Now he's world champion. Now he loses the championship to one of the members of one of these teams that are in gang warfare. What does Kurt Acid have to do to get back to the top to be that top name? And that's something that we're quietly created.
Well, guess that. You have any more questions for the boss man?
No, I do not.
Alrighty, well, I guess that brings us to final thought time. Obviously, we shit on the show a lot. It wasn't the worst show we've seen so far, though. Actually, in my opinion, it's one of the best shows we've watched so far. It had, just like when I talked about I think it was the second show, first trampoline show. It had that flow to it, that natural show progression. It didn't feel like it was as long as it was. I mean, this one went an hour and 15 minutes, if not a little bit more.
Lovely.
But we were talking about our final thoughts and everything and getting a final show rating before we send you to the lovely bumper and get everybody out of here for the evening and get on with our lives.
Get on with the lives. Go back and watch more of this stuff.
We do. We have a whole nother episode to film.
Yeah, but you've been hired to do it. We just need them to do it.
Yeah.
You're right. Go back and watch Over the Edge.
Yeah, watch Over the
Not
Edge.
the
Tell
Owen
us-
Hart one.
No, yeah.
Well, I mean, you can watch that too, but after you watch our Over the Edge.
Yeah. Tell
Yeah,
us
we're
what you
not
thought of
nuggets.
our rankings, you know?
What would you say your overall show rating is? I know you have a couple 0 stars on there, so that kind of
Yeah.
knocks
I'm probably
everything
gonna,
down.
Like, well, you know, but it you know, once there's 0 stars, but also very short matches, so
It's gonna be the only star rating segment in history that doesn't get the little pop up that has an actual star.
Averaged everything. I didn't do the math before, but I can do it now. And I've got it at a 2, solid 2.
Solid 2 overall. I actually had half stars for the first 2 matches, 2.5, 1, 1.
But they were designed to be that.
3.5. I know. I gave the show an overall 3.5 stars.
The biggest
Nice.
thing for me on this show, I'm going to give it a 2, and the biggest issue is the show should have started with DTC and Lucifer. The only reason it didn't is because of the Peep Show that really introduced the Psychor, but they were the most compelling match, I feel like, to really kick the show off. Starting it with a gun check of guys that can't fucking wrestle was not the way to go.
Yeah, because
The only other match on the card that I think that would have fit in the opening spot would have been myself and Victor.
Yeah.
The only bad part about doing that is you're featuring your Intercontinental Champion before you do your number one contendership. So there are things that played into the reason why they were put where they were, but the only one that was by design was having Captain Crooks back to back because he comes immediately back out pissed that just happened to him, and now he's going into the next segment. But I think you talked about it had a good flow. It did, but booking in a 2024 light, you start strong, you bring it back, and then you build again.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that show had that, and that's going to hurt it in the long run.
I was gonna say you started with the two that can't wrestle, and if you watch that versus the rest of the show,
If you would have,
those two matches first.
If you would have had 1 and 2 as 2 and 3, the dynamic of this show changes.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
most
my
definitely.
opinion.
Most definitely.
Even if you started with, say you started with Cynical and Blade, even. Start with Cynical and Blade, then you go to that. The only reason we didn't is because then it's Dylan in 3 different segments, back to back to back.
Yeah.
So there were reasons why things weren't placed where they were, but in a period now where you don't have guys doubling up, booking it in the order that it's booked would have made this show stand out more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had it at a solid 2. You had it at a 2. I had it at a 3.5. This is still, even if we average our 3 ratings together, still the highest rated show so far. In all of the shows we've covered on Inception. But we have more shows to cover after this, where our next show...
Many more.
Yeah, a lot.
We got a lot of history.
But the next one is a really important episode.
And it's important because it's the first ever Extreme King, as well as multiple other reasons. Which
It's the second Extreme King, but the first that we're going to be able to cover.
It's the first Extreme King that we can talk about. The next one will obviously have more reasons why it's important when we get there. And maybe you guys should stay tuned, tune in on the channel, go back and watch Over the Edge, come back when we have Extreme King 04 here on XCW.